you can also take it home to the 7 lakes of San Pablo City and to Laguna de Bay. Now, just for the discussion points, I'll zero in, of course, aquaculture per se, but as I said, I'm a lay person, and there's not much difference on the impact of aquaculture on water quality. So let me bring you closer to home to Laguna Lake, and I will mention also some of our experiences in the 7 lakes of San Pablo City. Then, of course, the practice and the environmental problems, as I said, it's pretty much the same. The practice may differ a little bit, but the impacts remain the same. Perhaps in terms of algal bloom, in the marine environment in Bolinao, they have dinoflagellates, but in Laguna de Bay, we have mostly blue-green algae. And on the management, it's again closer to home, because right now we're doing again the rezoning of Laguna de Bay for aquaculture, and some of insights on the way forward. So this was mentioned already by our acting president of the NAS, Dr. Toby Dairin, and also by some speakers on the importance of aquaculture, its contribution to economy, is a cheaper source of protein, and all these positive figures about aquaculture. But let me take you to another realm on how do we look at fish production and aquaculture. Why don't we look at it as a natural capital? So what do I mean? The LLDA, or Laguna de Bay per se, was very fortunate because it's one of the 2 sites of this very, it's in a pilot scale. It's called the Wealth Accounting and Valuation of Ecosystem Services. There are about 8 sites throughout the world, and we are very lucky that in the Philippines we have Laguna de Bay and we have Southern Palawan. So what's the purpose of this study, and what's the advocacy? Is to make natural resources, make them mainstream in development planning, and this will also guide our managers, our resource managers. So it's again giving us another view that, you know, the wealth of the Philippines is not just expressed in terms of gross domestic product, but the wealth of the Philippines can also be expressed in terms of its natural capital. So the technical report for waves is already at the LLDA website. I need not expound on this. You can read it, you can download it. But what I would like to stress, in so far as our topic is concerned, is the ecosystem account for Laguna de Bay. And you see here a resource rent. Simply translated, this gives us a value of the ecosystem service that the lake provides for fish pens, and the value of the ecosystem service that the lake provides for fish cages. And these are translated in terms of Philippine peso. So, you know, the red color for fish pens, that's in the Central Bay. The blue one is in the West Bay. This is the most productive part of the lake, and ironically, this is also relatively the most polluted part of the lake. But look at the ecosystem service. It's around 70,000 pesos per hectare per year. So if you have a 50 hectare fish pen, it's something like 3-point-something million pesos. That's the value that the ecosystem provides for fisheries. So I hope that you know, NEDA and PSA are really very working closely on this, and there are methodologies already. We have a national summit on natural capital accounting, and eventually we can put our natural capital as a measure of the wealth of our nation. So look at this trend in world lakes. You know, these are important lakes of the world, and Laguna de Bay is here. The first column is in terms of unsustainable fishing practice. And almost like in all these lakes from different parts of the continent, the arrow is decreasing. For Laguna de Bay, we have an arrow that's it has improved somewhat. Perhaps that was when we really implemented a new zoning and management plan, but this data was in 2005. So we need to reevaluate this. But my point here is really there are big issues of aquaculture, even if aquaculture provides a lot for people. So to make it sustainable, then a lot has to be done. Dr. Maglon presents to you the impact of aquaculture and having these fish pens or fish cages and go under a site where there is no fish cage. So these are the underwater shots. They did it twice. The first time, they just stayed for like a few minutes. Sabi nila, ang dilim pala sa ilalim ng lake. Nasanay kami sa dagat, kahit ilang metro na kami, maliwanag pa. But in Laguna, in Infantine Lake, it was really very dark. And you see those floating debris. Because in Infantine Lake, they also use artificial feeds. So this one start, and we're encouraging this Global Underwater Explorer team to do some diving, but we want to collaborate with our scientists so that this can be done. We put more value into the dive. Anong pwedeng gawing pag-aaral? In fact, we asked them to collect water samples for us for dissolved oxygen analysis and other parameters. So this is real picture of what's happening under a lake with aquaculture and with artificial feeding. And, with all these issues on aquaculture, the Fisheries Code specifically states that the carrying capacity must be determined. But take note that, as a rule, not over 10% of, there's Porco, suitable area of all lakes and rivers shall be allotted for aquaculture. Kasi at that time, wala pa yung mga modeling, wala pa yung mga hydrodynamics, wala pa yung mga ganong studies na talagang na-i-share sa public. So I think what BFAR did was some sort of a precautionary principle. But the stress here is that it's not automatic that if you have a 100 hectare lake, 10% of that or 10 hectares can be used for aquaculture because it's stressed there only the suitable area for aquaculture. So, going on carrying capacity, the LDA since the 1980s have started to compute the carrying capacity of the lake, and this is based on lake primary productivity. So from this production data, there are several steps, and we were able to translate it in terms of allowable area for aquaculture. So in 1996, when we revised the zoning and management plan, we have 15,000 hectares. And then in 2017, just last, anong date nga yun, Doc Rafi? I think that was last March or April, where we consulted with our panel of experts. And thank you very much to NAST. We have academician Emil Q. Javier and academician Dr. Rafi Guerrero, who joined us and who guided us in the firming up of the new carrying capacity for Laguna de Bay. So now we have set it at 9,200 hectares, and we're going through it. We're still in the process up to the layout. One challenge that we had with the fish pen operators was, we will calculate the carrying capacity and we project the fish production. For us, before, it's very easy to validate because LLDA then has an experimental fish pen in Cardona, Rizal. But since we stopped the operation of that fish pen, then we rely on data from fish pen operators, and it's very difficult to get reliable data from these fish pen and fish cage operators. So this is the zoning and management plan which will be revised. This is based on 15,000 hectares. Now we will reduce it to 9,200 hectares. But in Bolinao, the carrying capacity is in terms of the number of fish cages and fish pens, and they have set it at 544 units. And still, there was a question by Dr. Magno that why do algal blooms and fish kills still occur, even if the carrying capacity was already determined? So we need an improved methodology, of course. That's true. We need hydrodynamics, modeling. And for LLDA, the hydrodynamics of the lake, we will use it as a guide in the layout of fish pens. You cannot just put it anywhere. You have to consider the flow of water. Now, since a lot of scientists are here, a lot of practitioners. Yeah, of course, there's a guidebook for aquaculture, but is it possible to have a guidebook for the determination of carrying capacity? And how frequent must carrying capacity be done in an area that's used for aquaculture? One thing that that's not being thoroughly implemented yet is, as early as, this is still presidential decree, so this is Marcos' time, that aquaculture, fish pens and fish cages, needs to have an environmental compliance certificate. So again, we're studying this on how do we will require fish pen operators, but is it like one operator doing their own EIA, or we can do a programmatic one? We will consult with the Environmental Management Bureau. So these are just the last two slides. Take note, this is a very small lake in the boundary of Los Baños and Laguna. It's Tadlac Lake, in the 80s, 90s, it's full of problems. You can almost walk on the lake. Magtawid-tawid ka lang dun sa mga fish cages. Hindi na mababasa pa mo. You can cross the lake. And it's through a concerted effort of the Fisheries and Aquatic Resource Management Council, the Barangay Council, the Mayor, the LLDA, PICARD, NGOs, and other government agencies, we were able to convince the fish cage operators to temporarily leave the lake because there was massive fish kill that happened. And until now, there is no fish pen in Tadlac Lake. Before regularly see the lake, and the bounty is for all. So it's one big aquaculture area. So this was in the zona of President Duterte. And I'd like to thank NAST for having the theme in this meeting, the theme about fisheries and other aquatic products and aquatic resources. So it's very explicit. Laguna de Bay shall be transformed into a vibrant economic zone, showcasing ecotourism by addressing the negative impact of watershed destruction, land conversion, and pollution. And he said that the fish can and fish cage operators have to reduce their areas, and that poor fishermen shall have priority in its entitlement. So that's the last slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Santos Borda. Our last discussant will be Dr. Paul. The Secretariat is keeping time, so we should have time for the open floor.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here and to give my thoughts on the paper presented by Dr. Maclong. As we all know, of course, the discussion today focused on protection and conservation of marine resources. As we all know, this has never been more important than it is today. Many fish species are under stress due to declining water quality or loss of habitat, and that has been the fact for quite a long time already. And perhaps what we need to invest more is the understanding of the changing conditions which have affected marine resources, mainly a direct result of an increasing population, as you have pointed out also. This is important for us to realize what must be done. Overall, the presentation of Dr. Maclong evolves around the fact that poor water quality can impact the ability of fish species to reproduce, which has an effect on the steady supply of fish products as well, and for them to survive the stresses in the dynamic marine environment. But what is the very good point about the presentation of Dr. Maclong that a young scientist like me would really learn? Dr. Maclong's presentation provides us a combination of various multi- and interdisciplinary studies. They were a product of long years of research from an institution or research institution such as UPMSI. So after several years of efforts in doing those research, which Bolinao or ANDA is very much lucky to have, you have combinations, like a holistic perspective of how it is or what it is, and what are the factors that affect the water quality, that in turn affects, of course, the fish productivity in that area. It is important, of course, to take note that coastal and estuarine water quality in different parts of the country has declined due to a myriad of causes. And I guess really identifying those causes, of course, are part of the initial step in solving that problem. There are already areas where the trend of declining water quality has been reversed in recent years. But we take note, of course, that major improvement will be a long-term process. For the meantime, marine life must cope with water conditions which are very much less than what is optimal. Our theme for this meeting, of course, is about sustainable development. And listening to the presentation of Dr. Maclo, I came up with some questions that I believe was very much consistent on the discussions, let's say in NEDA, for instance, or in some other meetings here and abroad. This reminds us on the fact that the relationship between human activities and environmental impacts are hard to assess and regulate, particularly in the coastal and marine ecosystems. And one of the reasons that often is neglected actually is the fact that the coastal and marine ecosystems are actually common property resources. And I believe for us to better understand all of these problems that we're facing is the need for us to understand the prevailing property rights of these coastal and marine ecosystems. Second point, studies that look into the social and economic context in which the population and socio-economic systems are also changing, and as well as its impact on the environment. The literature are actually pointing to a number of unresolved issues, and we're happy that the presentation of Dr. Maclone actually provided some answers. Let me share these two unresolved issues. First, how to spatially and temporally link, let's say, populations or human activity to a specific environmental outcome. So here, very much important is the case of water quality. And in general, how population and environment linkages in the context of marine and coastal areas are influenced by, let's say, other concerns, but very much related, but not oftentimes connected, is on food trade, connecting consumers and other producers from, let's say, other parts of the world, maybe not from Anda or from Bulinaw, but in other markets. Let me point out, of course, that the presentation of Dr. Maclone actually raises the very essence of what sustainable development is. And it reminds us about the concept of limits. It's good to know, of course, that fish production is very important to us, in the same way that water quality maintenance is very much important to us. And therefore, in the context of sustainable development, what we're actually trying to look into is the balance between environment and development. And in this case, the balance between, or the realization of the fact that good water quality is also good for fish production. Now let me raise 3 points that I learned from, or that I would like to share in relation to the presentation of Dr. Maclone. The first one is the concern on scale. The second one is on the importance of the environmental impact assessment. And then the third one is on the concept of externalities. On the concern of scale, or on scale, well, we've already raised that coastal marine ecosystems are common property resources, and we have to very much take note of that. In the governance of these coastal marine ecosystems, we're actually trying to look for, or answering the question, it's actually about the question of fit. And currently there's this mismatch between the understanding in terms of the scale of what resulted or what contributed to the water quality dynamics, as well as on how we are managing it. And with that mismatch being not clearly understood, we surmise that these water quality problems will still continue. Okay. And I believe that this is what we should note in the need for us to design, particularly the necessary monitoring and evaluation protocol. Relates to this concept is the need for us to analyze things in a very site-specific manner. The discussion is pointed out on the carrying capacity. And what we need now is like a more quantitative approach in terms of how we determine carrying capacity. And likewise, this is very much site-specific. So there are spatial and temporal considerations in the determination of carrying capacity. A rule of thumb, of course, according to BIFAR, is 10% of the entire area. Well, that is, at least we have that particular basis. And as pointed out by Dr. Lenny kanina, there's a need for us to do more quantifications. And I believe there's a need for us to focus on more physical-chemical, including biological parameters, if that is possible. And we need to include this or incorporate this in our enhanced monitoring and evaluation system across the years in different spatial scope, if that is possible. The second one is the importance of environmental impact assessment. With the case or our problems with fishery production, actually there's hope in here. We already have the environmental impact assessment. But what is, in EIA, we're focusing on identification, quantification, and of course, we need to engage more on the monetization if that is possible. In the identification of impacts, just like what has been pointed out or has been shown with the studies of Dr. Maclone, what they did was very good. They did an interdisciplinary analysis of the relationship of the fish cage operations or fish pen operations with its total environment. And then they attempted actually to do robust quantification of the impacts of that particular activity. What we need actually is to utilize more the environmental impact assessment. We need to have more robust quantification approaches on how economic assessment of environmental impacts could be conducted, and then the ensuing economic analysis. Now that there is already that code of aquaculture practices has been mentioned earlier, there's a need for us to go back to this and then see how this can then be incorporated in our monitoring and evaluation system, as well as in terms of how we can then incorporate this in environmental management plans or the likes. The other one, the third point that I'd like to raise for your kind consideration is the concept of externalities. So, part of what Dr. Maclone presented is the need for us to internalize all of those externalities. Well, related to this are a number of economic valuation approaches that would allow us to capture value, demonstrate the value, and recognize the value. Ma'am Lenny already mentioned about field waves, and in there, field waves actually is very good because we want to look into more coefficients actually on the relationship between the biological systems to the socioeconomic systems. If you look into the literature, there's not much actually compilations of all of these studies, and a number of studies are actually sporadic. And this one actually points to the need for us to have a systematic integration or databases for this purpose. So when we do environmental impact assessment, or when we do whatever quantifications or studies, at least these are readily available for our purpose. Related to the discussion also on the fish cage and fish pen operations, are actually the need for us to utilize more on a number of analytical approaches. So I can't help but remember the need for us to study the technical efficiency or technical inefficiency of the fish cage and fish pen operators. Dr. Maclone pointed out the management of UPLB, and just like in the College of Economics and Management of UPLB, there are a number of already good techniques of NEDA, World Bank, and PSA, and other non-government agencies such as LLDA. There is now the move to institutionalize this. And there is also the need for us to look into how can we learn from this experience into comparable sites within our areas of jurisdictions or within the areas where we do our research. And institutionalization will not just end in there, but there has to be the need for us to be more adventurous on the exploration of, let's say, market-based incentive systems, if that is possible, because this is very critical for us to balance the development and conservation efforts, such as in the case of Bolinao and in Anda. Well, the other point that I'd like, I know this is big and this is very broad, but the concept on sustainable financing is very important. I can't help but, of course, recall the need for us to explore sustainable financing. If, for instance, we've thought that a particular system would be necessary for a community to invest on so they can then answer both the developmental and conservation aspect, there has to be a fuel to make these happen. And I believe sustainable financing is very important. And of course, couple that with clear enforcement system. These are very general, but I believe we already have everything in our plate, but we just have another closer look of what these are all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fog, and to our speaker, Dr. Maclone, and discussant, Ms. Santos Mora. I think the time is going to be limited for the open forum. I'll go to the first question from Dr. Ramon Luper, I think, from Adamson University. Are there studies with regards to microbial diversity and correlation to secondary productivity of both marine and freshwater habitats, as well as their effects on fish stocks? Dr. Maclone? So it's microbial diversity.
Yeah, we've been looking at microbial diversity in Bolinao and how that also shifts with shifting conditions. It's a recent undertaking by the group because we don't have an in-house microbiologist, no? But there is a faculty now who's looking into it, so eventually we'll come up with results to put up.
Santos Board, would you like to comment too? That's going to make our equations even more complicated.
But if they add the antibiotics and other components, then that is something else.
These are old concerns.
For Laguna de Bai, artificial feeding is not practiced really, but in the 7 lakes, it's being practiced, and just the same, if there are some hormones and other additives or what, then that becomes a very big concern.
Okay, this question, it's anonymous, but it's a very general question, so I'm not sure how you tackle it. It asks, what is the appropriate method for calculating carrying capacity given that ecological parameters are variable, for example, the time season? I think the panel members referred to how difficult it is becoming to define carrying capacity. I don't know if you want to add some more given this question. Maybe the time season, which was referred to in your Laguna presentation. I don't know if it struck you, we usually think of algal blooms as red tide, and we think of shellfish mainly. And unless there's a fish kill, we don't see the link to bangus, for example. Maybe I can add in here, does the fish kill, do they get to the market? You know, we're very careful about shellfish, but with bangus and tilapia, if I could throw that in together with the carrying capacity.
Well, if it's in Laguna de Bai or even in the 7 lakes, normally these fish kill are evident early in the morning. And for some enterprising fish cage operators, when they see, sabi na, ma'am, pag sisinghap-singhap na, hinuhuli na daw nila. But normally, kung walang bantay, ilang minutes lang naka-float na sila. So they really don't get into the market.
During the nature fish kill in 2001, I think they tried to make daing, parang yun, tinatry pa rin na ibenta, pero meron ng makatinain, meron effects. So I don't think they tried to sell.
The question was about
The carrying capacity.
carrying capacity. Well, there are actually very general models in measuring carrying capacity, but in the lake, in the case of bodies of water, it's very unique because you're trying to combine both the carrying capacity and the assimilative capacity. And since there is management component in the aspect, you look into the purpose, or the very purpose, or the very classification of what that lake is for. So therefore, you can balance both. In the general equation or models in carrying capacity, of of course, at the very component of it are the ecological parameters. So the water quality parameters should be there, and other parameters. In the literature, there's no one size fits all model. It's very much site specific. The literature is there. These are something we can really learn from. The challenge is how to then make this applicable to a particular condition. There are already initiatives in the Philippines with regard to carrying capacity models to start with. One is the ERDB's carrying capacity studies, and of course that's with Laguna Lake Development Authority. Our students in CESAM, of course, are doing also these carrying capacity models, but no general carrying capacity models, as far as I know of, that can be made applicable to all of us.
Which means the law needs to be reviewed as well. You can't limit it anymore to 10% of the area.
Correct, sir.
And looking at the secretary, do we still have time? One question? Hindi na tayo. Wrap up. Okay, this is very interesting. Meron ba? Last. I can get it from here. Mahaba naman. Let me see. Ooh, and this is not going to be, it's actually 2 or 3 questions. Dorothy. Dorothy, if you don't mind, I'll limit it to the first. How can we make the valuation of resources more mindful of the inequalities associated with those who have access to common property resources in terms of building fish pens? Wealthy capitalists get to build fish pens, and poor fisher folk are displaced from the fishing waters and suffer from the degradation associated with operating fish pens. So there's a question now of inequalities here.
I'll give the first crack. In the revision of the SOMAP that we're doing right now, in fact, the carrying capacity is at 9,200 hectares. And I remember Dr. Emil Javier factoring in that issue of inequality. So there was a mention also about sustainable financing. So he came up with this term, he coined the word corporation and cooperative. He called it corporative. So it's the fish pen owners and the group of fishermen who doesn't have this capital to link together and let the fishermen learn the business from the fish pen operators, and they can even finance certain aspect of operation. We are also talking with Land Bank, we are talking with DPP, because that was the mistake then when aquaculture was first introduced in Laguna de Bay. It was really intended for fishermen, but that time we don't have this lending facility, this support. So of course, the big businessmen took over, and now we're trying to address this. Sana wag nang ganun ka-blatant na talaga ang may-ari lang yung big operators. So for the SOMAP, of 9,200 hectares, 51%, the priority for allocation, unang i-offer sa mga fishermen. So next week, we will have a seminar with Land Bank, with DBP, with the National Crop Protection Council, DA, and we will be inviting the fishermen and the fish pen operators also. So 51% for the fishermen, first taker, 49% will be for the businessmen. So sa ngayon yun po lang yung ina-address. And I think the question also was, in the valuation of ecosystem service, how do you factor in this inequality? Para hindi ko pa po kayang sagutin yan ngayon.
That is actually a very difficult question for a researcher to answer, in the same way for like a politician to answer as well. But methodologically, we can actually factor in inequality in the way we approach valuation techniques. For instance, that could be in terms of the scope of your analysis, very academic answer. But the other one is we actually surmise, or we actually believe, or we want to emphasize that factoring in the total economic value of these resources as enjoyed by different stakeholders actually is in one way one step on the inequality issues. But that's totally different with the efficiency concerns, and I hope you agree with that one. In the case, for instance, of Laguna Divide, if I may, so for instance, there's that plan, there was that dismantling of, plan to dismantle actually fish cages, and one of the argument there actually is for us to make sure that there's already an access for the artisanal fishermen. So the valuation as applied to all of these stakeholders so that we can then appreciate how valuable that resource to each and every one of these different stakeholders, not just on one, is another attempt or one strong attempt to make sure that inequality is answered. The other one is it's not just actually inequality within one sector to other sector, but there are also inequality across or between generations. And methodologically, you can actually incorporate the considerations of the future generations in the way we make decisions today. So there are specific techniques how to do that, I believe the higher awareness of everybody on those kind of techniques in the way we proceed with the analysis and the way we then see through with the results of these analysis and respective management plans is indeed another step for inequality consideration, among others.
Dr. Maclone, we were using sign language, tinanong ko if she was going to respond there. None. But may I remind you again how Dr. Maclone and Ms. Santos-Bora pointed out the importance also of governance in LGUs. You can't have one municipality working on its own. We also saw the dramatic efforts in Laguna. Dr. Nantes' second question, we will not ask you to respond, but I just felt I had to read it out. It's a very intriguing question. Can LGUs or government agencies regulate access and find a way by which users of common property resources pay appropriate rent to government that commensurates from the profits from their fish pens and the environmental degradation that they cause? And we know this is a whole issue in itself when you talk about resource economics. The rent can then be used to fund livelihood projects for small-scale fisher folk who get displaced in the process. And the money or rent can be used for rehabilitating degraded conditions. As I said, we won't ask you to answer. I want to. We'll be very quick about it and then we'll wrap.
Actually, the closing slide ko sana was the decision of the Supreme Court. It's a landmark decision. It's the very first decision so far that is ecologically based. Anong story? Nung na-release po yung local government code, dinimanda ang LLDA ng ilang grupo ng fishermen operators.
We'll take this up in future workshops. May I now call on Academician Fabian Dairit, who's the acting president of NAS, and Director Victor Mariano, Regional Director of DOST CAR, to present out certificates and tokens of appreciation.
Dr. Panganiban's presentation will be followed by sharing of insights by Dr. Romel C. Lizan from the Department of Health, Mimaropa Region, and Dr. Ray Doni Papa from the University of Santo Tomas, while the rapporteur for this session will be Ms. Emelita P. Bagsit, Supervising Science Research Specialist of the DOST Region 4A Calabarzon. At this point, may I request our speaker, discussants, and rapporteur to please come up the stage and occupy the seats provided. Dr. Panganiban, Dr. Lisan, Dr. Papa, and Ms. Bagsit, please. Dr. Lynn Crisanta R. Panganiban is a family medicine specialist and a clinical toxicologist. She finished her Doctor of Medicine degree at the UP College of Medicine. Nakalagay dito yung year pero hindi ko na po babanggitin, mapagalitan. She is a full professor in pharmacology and toxicology at the UP College of Medicine, Department of Pharmacology and Toxicology, and Clinical Toxicology Consultant of the National Poison Management and Control Center, UP College of Medicine, Philippine General Hospital. Her current administrative positions include the following: Assistant to the Associate Dean for Faculty and Students, UP College of Medicine, and Chair of the Ad Hoc Committee on Healthcare Quality and Patient Safety. Dr. Panganiban's advocacy is towards patient safety, public health, and the protection of vulnerable populations from toxic exposures to hazardous chemicals in the environment. She is also involved in several activities concerning safety in the workplace. May I also introduce at this point the distinguished discussants and rapporteur for this plenary session. Dr. Romel C. Lisan is a medical specialist 3 and currently heads the Environmental and Occupational Health Office of the Department of Health, Mimaropa Region. On the other hand, Dr. Ray Papa is currently an Associate Professor of Biological Sciences at the University of Santo Tomas. He is a limnologist who finished his BS, MS, and PhD degrees from the University of Santo Tomas. A specialist in freshwater zooplankton ecology and systematics, he has conducted many researches in Lake Taal and other Philippine lakes and has published in national and international peer-reviewed journals, book chapters, and books. He teaches invertebrate zoology and ecology to graduate and undergraduate students in the University of Santo Tomas and heads the Zooplankton Ecology, Systematics, and Limnology Research Group at the Biology Laboratory of the UST Research Center for the Natural and Applied Sciences. At present, he is the point person for biology at the UST Graduate School. Last but not the least, Ms. Emelita P. Bagsit is a supervising science research specialist at the Department of Science and Technology, Calabarzon Region. She has been serving DOST Calabarzon for 21 years. Oh, sorry. Overseeing its testing and laboratory services and the agency's other technical services. Ms. Bagsit graduated from the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, with a degree in Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. She took her diploma studies in Research and Development Management in UP Open University and her master's in Technology Management at UP Diliman, where she graduated as the top performing student of her class that pioneered the off-campus scholarship program of DOST. At this point, I would like to remind our speaker that she will be given 20 minutes for her presentation, and our discussants a 15-minute time allotment each for their insights. A 10-minute open forum will follow afterwards. We would also like to remind the audience to please write the questions on the piece of paper that will be provided by the ushers and usherettes. Also, please don't forget to indicate your name and affiliation. Please hand over the questions to the usher or usherettes at the sides of the stage. And to manage our time, priority will be given to the written questions. At this point in time, I now call on Dr. Panganiban for her presentation.
Maraming salamat, Director Sita. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Before I begin my talk, I would like to thank the National Academy of Science and Technology for allowing me to be part of your regional meeting for this year. Can I have the first slide, please? The task that I was asked to talk in the next 20 minutes is to link up what happens in the environment when it comes to pollution and how will this translate to health. Are there evidences right now, even in the Philippines, that this is happening? And so my talk will center on not just talking about pollution per se as an element of contamination, but I will talk about two other issues that pertain to environmental concerns. Each and every one of us will eventually get sick. Then my third point that I'm going to discuss will be what will be the health impacts. The health impacts will concentrate on number one, of course,
will be about exposure factors. We will just run through them. And the second will be, of course, the agent, the pollutant that we are concerned about. And the third, of course, will be the effects. And the last part will be on what are some strategies that we can adopt here in our country to be able to circumvent the possibility that each and every one of us will get sick as a result of exposure to pollutants in the environment. Smith, I've been involved for many years in Blacksmith Institute. This is one of the studies of Undersecretary Mendoza in Laguna Lake. Also, they found out that not just in the fish products, but also even the fingerlings, you already seen the presence of heavy metals. Next, please. Is it okay? Okay. So the next issue now is more of not just a contamination, but also bioaccumulation and biomagnification increase. And so who is on top of the web chain, the food web chain? It's man. So when the small fish will eat a contaminated product, a fish product, the percent or the amount of mercury may still be small, but tayo, nakakain na ng malaking mga isda, mas tumataas na concentration ng mercury. And that's the issue of biomagnification. The other issue is that it bioaccumulates. So, ibig sabihin, hindi siya naaalis kaagad sa katawan natin. Ito yung mga sinasabi namin, may forever pagdating sa environmental toxicants. Ayaw tayong iwanan. No? Tikit ng tikit sa atin. And that's one concern that we have to take into consideration. Okay. And this is in mercury in fish. Many years ago, in 2002, we were able to do some monitoring along Honda Bay. And we know very well that the Honda Bay was contaminated by the abandoned mine or the legacy mine, PQMI. And when we look into the presence of mercury, total mercury and methyl mercury in the fish that fish species that were collected or harvested in the Honda Bay, rather, you would see that in just one example, if you have torsillo, the amount of methyl mercury, or rather the amount of methyl mercury is 440.77 nanograms per gram, which is a lot higher to that which is the standard acceptable level. Okay. The third issue when it comes to environmental contamination also, not just contamination, biomagnification or bioaccumulation, will be that of persistent organic pollutants. That they persist through so many years, their environmental half-lives last through many years, and among which would of course be your pesticides. And this is a study done by Dr. Santiago of NSRI in UP Diliman in 2007. This was several years after we are supposed to be not using DDT anymore, okay, for malaria control. And what her group did was they looked into the presence of these pesticides and their metabolites in shrimps, in fish, okay, and in squid. Okay? And then they looked at the levels or the presence just to show that in her study, the presence of DDT and the different metabolites are still present in these marine products. Okay. Now let's go into the implications on health. Okay? And I mentioned the first one is exposure. If we do not have an exposure, then we would say that your pathway is not complete. So you will not get sick. However, if there is significant exposure, which means I eat a contaminated fish, I drink a water that is contaminated, then it gets into my system and eventually I can develop illness. And there are different factors that we need to look into when we're measuring exposure. The timing is very important. How long, how frequent, okay, the magnitude of exposure will also define the implication when it comes to health. One thing I would just maybe want to emphasize is timing. Many of our pollutants now produce what they call endocrine disrupting capacity or endocrine disrupting effects. And one of which is, of course, reproductive effects. So when you talk about this type of effect, timing is of the essence. Because when a mother takes in this pollutant, in whatever fish product or aquatic resource would that be, and it is within what they call the vulnerable window we're in, when she gets pregnant, the developing fetus could also be affected. Okay, so timing as far as exposure is important. Second would be, of course, the agent. I mentioned about the agent that you have to note what would be the physical-chemical parameters of the agent. Okay, are they the agents that can produce, like, say, reactive species that eventually there will be more toxin than the parent compound? How do they behave in the environment? Will they persist or they accumulate in the environment? And where do they act? Which organ systems will they eventually act? Will it be the most essential organ systems, like the nervous systems, reproductive, or developmental effects? Next we'll talk more about the effects. When you talk about effects, we have two areas that you have to look into: acute, which is immediate, or chronic, which is long-term. Long-term, this is a big challenge to us because we may continuously eat something that's contaminated, but it will not reflect on our health. Only it will reflect long after we have been continuously eating that contaminated fish product. Next, please. Okay. Earlier, Dr. McLeod was telling us about algal blooms, and this is one of the obvious acute effects that we would see because of contamination of our water systems and aquatic resource. And this is your paralytic shellfish poisoning. Next, please. Within 30 minutes to 1 hour, if I eat a contaminated shellfish, you will develop all the signs and symptoms. About 15 years ago, when BFAR has not developed a very good, still a work in progress, developed monitoring system, we would always get calls at the poison center. We even had cases where we didn't even know what it was, and then Marine Science Institute, they presented with urologic symptoms. And good enough, Marine Science Institute was able to isolate the particular toxin. It was domotoxin, which you don't usually would see in our day-to-day practice. And so it was a challenge for us that when we're talking about acute effects brought about by algal blooms, fish kills and all, it's always a work in progress. Because what is changing in our environment now, day in, day out, new toxins will already be developed by these dinoflagellates and will present with different clinical manifestations. Next, please. Now, as far as chronic effects, we have two areas that we need to look into. Number one would be the non-carcinogenic, and the second one will be the carcinogenic endpoints. Next. Of course, the non-carcinogenic is your reproductive endpoints. And this is manifested by your Minomanov syndrome. Next, please. Then, of course, the chronic effects would also manifest with cancer. And this is our concern right now, with several cases coming in to us and now presenting with cancer, especially cancer of the skin, and we have linked them up into their exposure in terms of exposure to contaminated aquatic resources. Next, please. Now, this is quite a small slide, but what I just would want to tell you, this is arsenic poisoning. That when you talk about arsenic poisoning, you will see that skin cancer in terms of its prevalence is about 10 in 1,000 population. If you look at the mortality rate based on literature, you would see that it is a very high standardized mortality rate, about 6 in 100,000 population just for men. Next, please. Okay, so that's how, as far as a challenge for us, this is quite a very, very extensive topic for me to discuss, but these are just vignettes, or these are just broad points that we just want to raise in front of the audience right now, that there are a lot of things that we need to do. Right now, we've been seeing, there have been cases, I don't have time to present to you, but we've been seeing cases of arsenic poisoning, most of them secondary to cancer, intake of fish as contaminated by methyl mercury, presenting with developmental delay among children. So what would be some, I will just run through one of the important points that we just want to recommend for maybe this forum, is that for us to come up with health risk assessment activities. One is to identify before somebody gets sick, let's look into the risks. If I eat that particular fish, if I eat that particular shrimp, will I get sick? This is what people would always would ask us. Okay? And that is the value of doing health risk assessment. Next, please. This is actual data. We were able to collect the levels of in drinking water, presence of arsenic in the different barangays in one of the provinces here in Manila, in Luzon. And you will see if we compute for hazard risk, which means that what is the potential for me to get sick or like skin diseases, no? Because of my exposure to arsenic with this particular level. So 0.4 milligrams per liter. If you're a 70 kilogram man, you have 32 times the incidence for you to get sick. Next, please. If you're a child, you have more chance. The risk is greater for a child. Next, please. Let's look at cancer. Cancer doesn't have what you call your safety net. So when we talk about cancer, as far as evaluating risk, is that what is my chance and excess chance for me to get skin cancer, because that's one of the endpoints for your arsenic. In Barangay A, you have about 7.5 times 10 to the minus 3, which is a level of concern. Because if you look at the risk assessment paradigm, when you have levels of 1 to 10 to the minus 4, it's something for you to have a concern with. Next, please. And for a child, it's higher. The risk is higher. Next. Okay, so if you look at safe levels, if you look at reference doses, right now, standards, now if you're going to drink arsenic in drinking water for that level, your arsenic level should be 0.01 milligrams per liter. For a child, it has to be 0.008 milligrams per liter. So definitely, what was collected and monitored and evaluated in those different barangays, they were higher than what we should be in what you call the safe dose, in terms of non-carcinogenic effects. Next, please. So some other strategies I would want to challenge each and every one of us is to really implement our laws. I think everybody's been saying we have very good environmental laws. How do we trickle it down from the national down to the local government? It will be a challenge for us at this time. With the Clean Water Act, I know heavy metals, pesticides are supposed to be monitored, not just in drinking water, but in biota. But how many would really implement such monitoring? To decrease our dependence also in chemicals, to improve productivity and to increase economic gain, and decrease the release of chemicals into the environment. Okay, next please. Okay. And then of course, for us to set up really good environmental biologic monitoring, post-marketing surveillance, and for us medical doctors to conduct our medical surveillance systems. Next please. Okay, so my take-home points. Number 1, environmental issues affecting pollution of aquatic resources are not just contamination, but also biomagnification and bioaccumulation, and at the same time, persistence. Second, the health implications that you have to look into. You have to study the exposure. You have to look at what pollutants are we dealing with, and of course, what will be the effects. What we are concerned right now will be the carcinogenic effects and the endocrine disrupting effects. And of course, the last is improvement or important preventive strategies that we need to employ would be, of course, to look at, would be environmental and biologic monitoring. We look into medical surveillance, and at the end, we do our health risk assessment. Okay, next please, and I think that is my last slide. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Panganiban, for the very comprehensive discussion. Now we have a new meaning for the phrase, my forever. Thank you, Paul. Likewise, I believe there is now a need for us to come up with portable detection kits, no? Para for just to be sure, siguro, and we have to have a closer look at the Philippine standards. May we now have Dr. Romel C. Lisan, sir, for your insights.
Good afternoon to each and everyone. Before, people used to think that pollution is only yung pagtatapon natin ng solid waste and our vehicles emitting gases. It is, kasi baka po mamaya mayroong religious dito, mapagalitan na naman po tayo, that the population of the Philippines has doubled or probably tripled in the last decade or so. Probably 3 decades na nag-increase ang ating populations. Now, why did I mention that? It translates that more human beings translates to more pollution. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? Ayaw nilang maniwala, ma'am. Now, food security has been a major issues dahil sa paglobo ng ating population. So what do? So, sa agriculture, we resort to more technologies. We try to discover more things. So we have come up with better fertilizers, better pesticides para mag-increase yung ating ani. Well, in the fisheries sectors, we resort to aquaculture. But mula pa kanina, we've been talking about the effects of it in the environment. Hindi ko na po kailangang elaborate sa natin ulit. What good is the rice, the corn, the vegetables, if it contains poisons? What good is our fish if it doesn't taste right? Or better, or worse pala, it gives us an illness. Agree? Sabi nila, hindi lang daw masarap. Pero actually, ang akala ko noon, pag ang isda ay nabubuhay, ibig sabihin malinis ang tubig. Hindi po pala. Now, ibang level na naman tayo. We are now actually dumping toxic heavy metals. Dati sa ilog lang at sa streams. Now, it already found its way in our seas. I would like to elaborate po yung senior ni Dr. Panganiban kanina, the one in Palawan. Yung slides na pinakita niya, she showed us that yung kanilang health assessment was done in 2006. This is the first time that I've known, and it was actually an area of concern of mine, being the environmental head of unit head of the Department of Health in that region na nakakasakop po sa Palawan. Now recently, in February, I was asked by the DNR-EMB to conduct another health assessment in the area. And we found out that the mine tailings, yung lake po na na-produce ng PQMI is still there. At pagka dry season po, okay lang, walang problema. But during the rainy season, when the lake swells, dumami yung tubig, it flows into a river system that eventually dumps its water through on the bay. But we found out that those people tested, 70% of those are found to be positive of mercury. So, ang ibig ko lang pong sabihin gano'n na pong katagal yun, and we still see the effects. So, what they did was, tinuruan po nila ako doon how they handled it. Actually, the EMB already put a perimeter fence around it. Pinagbawalan na po nila yung mga tao doon to gather fishes, hindi na po nila If you all know, baka po yung iba sa inyo were not even born, or nasa kinder years nyo pa po noong 1996 when that disaster happened. Now, the effects is still there. Air, water, sa soil, nandun pa rin po. We have already documented that several times through the help of the UP Poison Management Control. Now, ngayon po, with collaboration with them, this is what we plan to do. We plan to go back in the near future, actually po sa susunod na buwan. We are not going to conduct another health assessment because we already knew. But what we are going to do is to test the water, the groundwater, and probably issue an advisory. Para po yung concern was, sana po we could know kung ano po dito. We understand that not all the fishes are contaminated. Hindi po daw lahat. There are only several species, but we would like to identify them. Likewise, we also want to issue an advisory, not only to the Marindueños, but dun sa mga paligid nun. I understand it, hindi lang po sila ang kumakain ng isda, but they are exporting it to other provinces. And we don't want heavy metal poisoning to spread. Sorry po na naibabalita ko po dito to. These are all bad news. But these are the things that we are doing. And also, one of the professors and a good friend of mine in UP taught us na kailangan pala namin na mag-establish ng surveillance system doon. Now, what are we going to do? We're going to test it. We're going to train all the physicians, the health workers there, to identify and diagnose yung mga paano itong mga heavy metal poisonings na ito. We will be conducting the training in July. And we're going to talk and have a memorandum of agreement with various hospitals, particularly the one in Batangas, UP, and when we plan to do that, another one is in East Avenue Medical Center, para po dun sa initial referrals. Actually, we're going to do that by using our program. We call it a telemed. So, imbis na yung pasyente po ay pupunta, we have set up this area where we have a high-tech communication equipment, so pwede pong makita. And from then on, they could mabibigyan po nila ng guidance kung what test to do. And then pagkakailangan po nila ng referral or treatment, we plan to bring them to the treatment hospital. Sabi ko nga po kanina, the threat is real. Yung pong signs and symptoms talagang nakikita namin. And it is a grave, malaking-laki po ang problema. Buti na lang, we know that there are treatment modalities, but the sad news is, it is unreachable for the common man. Napakamahal. Am I right, ma'am? Ma'am, can you give us an idea? Magkano po ba yung pagkalimbawa po kinikilate natin? How much po yung gastos nun? Mamaya na. I think it costs around 100,000. Totoo po ba? More, 100,000 to 200,000 per person. Can you imagine that? So, I believe my time is up. So, yun lang po. Good afternoon and have a good day po.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lilisan, sir. Sa totoo lang po, I was both happy knowing that there had been initiatives to really document this, and I was likewise afraid of the reality. Next, I would like to call Ray Papa, sir, for your insights.
Good afternoon po to everyone. It's really an honor to have been invited as one of the discussants for this afternoon's session. I'm happy that my fellow discussant is also a medical doctor and can relate to the medical aspects of the lecture of Dr. Panganiban. So I'll try to bring it down more to my comfort zone, which would of course be on the environment. Feeling ko nga po nung una, medyo misplaced ako with because I can relate more to the talks of Dr. Maclone and Dr. Palier. But since the work that I do would also include organisms that are going to be playing a big role in human health later. So I think I'll try to do justice to what I'm about to do. Okay, so our speakers actually provided a very good overview on the exposure pathways from the source of the toxin to the exposed population, and even gave good examples that are happening in the local setting. This has also been further improved by my fellow discussants. So for instance, the pollution that is present in Laguna de Bai and also in the Bulacan River systems have been tackled in her lecture. And as for the environmental issues that have been raised, of course you have the issues of contamination, bioaccumulation and biomagnification, and POPs. And of course its detrimental effects on the population. And also for preventive strategies, I'd like to focus more on the preventive strategies that our speaker has been able to suggest. Okay, so number one, she mentioned that strengthening of agreements and national environmental laws is a must in order to be able to help alleviate the eventual impacts on human health by any form of pollution that takes place in the aquatic ecosystems. Now, I'd like to, of course, this has been stressed as early as this morning, that we actually have some of the most well-crafted environmental laws in the world. And so in terms of the presence of laws, we already have those that can actually help regulate the presence or help penalize those that actually pollute our aquatic ecosystems. Now, the thing that takes place, of course, is that implementation problems hound us and thus allow the unabated contamination of our aquatic ecosystems. And also, we should also think of strengthening the already existing environmental monitoring that are being conducted in order to keep us in the know on the past and current water quality conditions. And next point that our speaker has mentioned is the implementation of environmental and biological monitoring. So I'd like to stress more on this aspect, given that it is much more close to my own field of research. Now, in 2015, we actually came up with a paper that listed out several challenges to Philippine lakes. Number one would be the lack of scientific knowledge. Although we know that we have a lot of researchers that have been doing research on Philippine lakes, for instance, however, not many of these come out in publications, and worse, not many of the results, therefore, are utilized to guide in crafting some policies, although we, of course, know of some that are already in place. Next would be the overdevelopment of littoral zones for many uses, including housing, and therefore it also contributes now to the influx of domestic waste into the water, our water bodies. Next would be irresponsible and intensive aquaculture. Of course, we know that without aquaculture, the prices of fish in the market would be extremely high. And therefore, aquaculture is a good thing, especially for a developing economy such as the Philippines. The usual problems that are associated with environmental health and eventually human health with regards to aquaculture here in the country are actually because of its intensive practice in many aquatic ecosystems. And Philippine lakes are some of the most prone to the detrimental effects that we have here. Of course, as mentioned earlier in the parallel session that happened before ours, of course, you have excessive nutrient and pollution levels that can eventually lead to fish kills, and you also have the invasion of exotic species. Now, our speaker actually pointed out to the monitoring, to the need for monitoring for aquatic ecosystems to actually para unahan po yung mga potential pollutants, malaman bago pa sila makita. Now, I give you an example of the results we have comparing lakes. We have a comparison of 4 lakes. The blue one would be for, you have different lakes here, so Lake Geneva, Lake Biwa, the Faithway Reservoir in Taiwan, and Lake Taal. So, obvious naman po kung alin dyan yung sa atin. And this is to think that Lake Taal, according to recent estimates on the number of researches that are being conducted, is the second most well-studied lake in the country, second only to Laguna de Bai. Which means kahit second largest na yan na data set on publications and researches, napaka-konti pa rin lang po ng alam natin. And napaka-recent pa lang ng routine monitoring na ginagawa doon. And Laguna de Bai is actually much more fortunate because the LLDA has had a routine monitoring established for several years, and the location of the sampling sites are more useful as compared to what they had in Lake Taal, which was actually just focused on the fish cage areas of the lake. So as you can see, for many different parameters, marami pong walang alam na data on lakes in general here in the Philippines. Now this is real data, data that was conducted by a research cooperation between the Research Institute for Humanity and Nature, UP Manila, LLDA, and UP Los Baños. So you can see here levels of lead and zinc, okay, in different areas in Laguna de Bai, in the littoral areas. So some areas have alarmingly high amounts. Now, as to how this has been transferred to the human population, I was talking earlier to our speaker, and she mentioned that fortunately, hindi siya na-transfer pa to the population that are living in these areas because they know that these fish are actually potentially exposed. So hindi na nila kinukuha para kainin. But still, their presence in the environment at that levels would really be very alarming. Now this is a caricature that was done by a master student of ours. It is included in a paper that we published, and it actually sums up what you actually have, the problems that occur or co-occur with aquaculture. Now I put in a box there about antibiotics and hormones. It was earlier mentioned that this is a potential problem for the human population. So if irresponsible and under-regulated aquaculture practices continue, and if the fish feeds are not tested for the presence of these antibiotics and hormones, then it might pose a big health problem for the human population. Of course, all the other problems are associated with nutrient enrichment, and it would cascade down to blooms, which would eventually be harmful to human health, especially with the persistence of toxins such as microcystin and saxitoxins. Now, I'd like to share with you an example of utilizing monitoring data for good purposes. This is a project spearheaded by Laguna Lake Development Authority. Actually, it utilized their data. So we came up with the Laguna de Bai 2013 Ecosystem Health Report Card. So this one makes use of the available scientific data and translates it into a media or a medium that can be more understandable. And as you can see, it shows there that for water quality, Laguna de Bai for 2013 got a C-. Okay? And for fisheries, unfortunately, bagsak. So hindi mo na kailangan masyadong magtingin ng scientific data. Pagtingin mo pa lang dito, alam mo na masama ang lagay ng Laguna de Bai. So wag na nating hintayin bumagsak siya o mag-repeat, diba? Kumbaga sa eskwelahan. So ngayon medyo precarious ang kanyang situation. Now, I'd also like to share with you that a healthy aquatic environment translates to a healthy community. We have this project again with on Laguna de Bai, this time with UP Diliman, RIN, and LLDA again. I'd just like to point out here that good biodiversity in aquatic ecosystems would automatically translate to the lessening of the potential for pollutants to reach out and go up into the food web and then reach eventually our human population. So we have here a study on stream benthic macroinvertebrates in response to water quality. So we group streams in the Marikina watershed area into urban and rural areas. Of course, our urban areas would have higher nutrient inputs and as compared to the rural areas. And this is the data that we were able to obtain. So you can clearly see that biodiversity trends in responses of water quality differ remarkably between these two sites. And therefore, if you have good biodiversity in the stream areas, it also translates to good water quality, and therefore you have potential for a healthier human population in those areas. Now, this is a suggestion to all of you here. We all belong to research institutions, to academic institutions. This is a paper that we published in 2014 that actually harnesses the SUCs similar to an Adopt a Lake or Adopt a River project, wherein you focus your resources into monitoring for health purposes, for environmental water quality, and other and biodiversity in the area that you are in. And then with that data set, we would be able to be warned before detrimental effects of any pollutants would actually take place in the community already. And these are some projects that we're doing in the lab at the moment. Of course, ang pinaka-paboritong hayop ko po sa balat ng lupa ay mga zooplankton. And tapos na po kami dun sa basic part, yung taxonomy and systematics and biodiversity, at least for freshwater. And so we're using it now for aquatic health. So these are two studies that we're doing. These are my last two slides. So one is toxicity evaluation of selected nanoparticles in the freshwater calanoid Archaeopteryx dorsalis. Of course, nanomaterials are present in many of the products that you are using at the moment, including your makeup. And so when you wash this off, it goes into your water bodies, and we don't know yet, in the current Philippine setting, what the potential negative impacts of long-term exposure could be. So initially we're just going to test 3 because this is a part of a dissertation of a graduate student. And eventually, of course, it would go and get into fish because ang plankton po na yan kinakain ng isda, and then kinakain natin ang isda. And this is the last one. We hope it gets approved soon. So we want to also test the relationship of cholera with the diversity of freshwater zooplankton that we have here in the country. Kadalasan po kasi ngayon ang cholera nangyari na bago pa na-determine. Minsan nawala na nga sa sistema ng pasyente bago pa nalalaman na outbreak na pala ang nangyari doon. And in other studies in Sri Lanka, for instance, they found out that certain species of zooplankton play a big role in transmitting the Vibrio cholera bacterium to the patients, to humans. And so these are the things that we do. Now, many of you might wonder why I am interested in freshwater ecosystems, why I study freshwater biodiversity. I belong to a university that transforms into a freshwater ecosystem during the rainy season. So that's a very beautiful photo of the flooded University of Santo Tomas. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Papa. Well, that last slide was really very interesting. Aside from the fact that I now know that the makeup of my wife contributes pala sa environmental degradation. Sad. Anyway, we have come to the most awaited part of our session, and we are now ready for the open forum. Isa lang. I saw President Antes scribbling earlier, so I believe merong tatlo dyan. Okay, this is from Chito Lulu of NCR. After hearing your lecture, I am now more paranoid with what my family is eating, since it seems that there is no sure way of escaping from these environmental toxins. What can you advise us to do to minimize, if not avoid, these toxins entering our body? Anybody?
It's true that there are some toxins that are not visible. When you see water that's clean, doesn't mean that it's entirely clean. It doesn't have to be turbid. But one thing that maybe it's very practical that we can do is we always have to ask, where is the source of our food products, our drinking water? Yung parang makikialam ka ngayon kung saan ba ang pinaka-primary source. Alam mo, we learn these things from the people in the community. Sasabihin nila doon sa Benguet, dito sa Benguet, when we did some studies, some of the farmers would say, Doktora, hindi kami kumakain ng mga pinuproduce namin vegetables. Kasi alam namin, maraming pestisidyo po yan. Bago kami mag-harvest, binobombahan namin yan para maging maganda ang itsura. Alam po namin kung ang isang pestisidyo, isang vegetable ay hindi kontaminado na napakataas. Ang sabihin nga nila, may nakikita kang mga butas-butas, hindi naman entirely lahat ng lettuce mo kailangan spick and span clean, walang butas. Ang tanggalin mo lang yung mga butas, the rest, which means sabi nila, wala masyado po yan. Okay. One is, we want to promote also organic farming sa ating end. It's just that right now, sometimes it's more expensive. But nowadays, kasi because nagko-compete na, minsan pag pupunta mo sa supermarket, mura na mga organic farming. And these are things we need to learn. Yung fish, sabi nga nila, nandun kami sa Laguna Lake when we were doing the study with LLDA, they were saying some of them, they know, sabi ni Lenny kanina, di ba Lenny, there was like an aftertaste, they would say, when they harvest yung dun galing sa lake. Sasabi na, mag-collect ka ng fish na galing sa Batangas, iba daw ang quality ng tilapia doon sa Batangas. So just to tell us, saan ang gagaling ang mga fish sources natin? Kasi a number of our agencies like Laguna Lake, meron yan sila. It's just maybe a matter of really accessing the data that they have. And then when it comes to like the data that we have, but we will still encourage na sana kung may mga ganong monitoring. In advanced countries, hindi naman ito problema natin. Problema din naman nila yan eh. If you know the story of the Great Lakes, na mataas ang antas ng mercury nila. Pero nakakakain naman din sila ng isda. Kasi patuloy nila minomonitor, tapos nagagawa sila ng advisory. Na ganitong season, huwag muna tayo kumain ito. Ito na lang muna kainin natin. So it doesn't deprive us of the food that we want to eat. It's just that we are properly advised. And this is a big challenge to our regulatory agencies to come up with simple advisory. Like Sinaleni, they were doing yung sa LND na project. Blacksmith is doing the same thing with HSBC and with the local government in Bulacan kasi doon yung problema. So these are things that we have to be maybe vigilant and in the end utilize whatever data we have in science and translate it in the local parlance para masabi natin hindi naman ibig sabihin hindi tayo kakain. It's more of where the source is and properly guided by the values that are presented.
I would like to add something now. This question also came up when recently we have our regional interagency committee hearings. It is composed of several national government agencies na nag-uusap kami. The problem is dapat daw the regulating agencies should be doing monitoring more. And pagka naman po dapat daw naging issues ng mga advisories, you don't only give the names, but rather ilagay nyo din daw po yung mga pictures. Because I understand iba-iba pong lugar, iba-iba po ang tawag sa isda. So probably na-misinterpret po. So inad ko lang po kasi yun po yung nag-come up nung yung question na yan. Isa po sa mga sumagot, nanawagan din po yung kanyang sinabi.
Yeah, that's a very nice point, sir. Thank you. Unahin ko yung pinakamadaling tanong. Yes or no lang siguro. From Carlos Peña of DOST-NCR, are there ongoing projects that aim to develop low-cost rapid detection kits for heavy metals for water?
Actually, there is, di ba ma'am? Just recently, a week ago, the Central Office of the Department of Health entertained a company that they see that this device can detect arsenic in water rapidly in the on-site. I've seen also a machine that could test mercury in the air. Pero sa totoo lang po, I haven't experienced, hindi ko po talaga sigurado if these tests are effective. What we do know is that there are a lot of accredited laboratories to detect using different specimens. The UP.
Actually, like when we were doing the study with LLDA and UP Manila, we asked the help of PD to monitor the presence of heavy metals in our fish samples. So may mga agencies of government that already have the technology. Kaya ang problema lang, actually, sa atin is hindi pa tayo na dun sa level na makakaspeciate tayo. Because like when we're talking about arsenic, when you say it's a total arsenic, it doesn't mean that total arsenic levels na yan talagang masama. Kasi may organic arsenic content na mabuti naman yan. It's the inorganic, that's the one that we are scared about. So ito yung mga china-challenge namin sa mga colleagues namin in the academe and even in the government, like in ET, for them to be able to come up with methods to be able to speciate particulars, the particular type of the chemical that will really produce significant health effects. Alam ko sa mga marine toxins, work in progress. So like marine science have developed a lot already of tests, hindi lang for ating mga paralytic shellfish, but some other toxins which I think bihar. So pagdating dyan, more or less we're progressing. Pagdating sa mga metals and chemicals, this is still a big challenge kasi a number of them really would need newer technologies that in the future will be able to detect. Screening lang yun, but the real establishment, you need real good analytical machines to be able to document them.
Thank you.
Can I add something? Actually, it's not my research work, but I know academician Fortunato Sevilla from UST is into low-cost instrumentation. And if I'm not mistaken, I've heard him developing some for heavy metal use, no? Others for fish freshness and other things. So probably this could be tapped into for further development so that it will help our scientists, no, in different parts of the country.
Thank you po. Although binigyan ako ng notice dito na last question na lang, I'll just skip the other questions, but I would like to mention this one. How can our existing environmental laws be implemented effectively? Because it is very clear that in our present system, it would be very difficult to prove in court who is most responsible culprits among the industries. So would you like to say something about that, sir?
I cannot answer that precisely because the DOH is not doesn't have a police arm. But during our recent RIASI meeting, this same question also came up. And it was actually addressed to other agencies like the DNR na talagang impose nila. I would say probably sa Pilipinas kasi the laws are very lax. Andyan siya, pero hindi mo talaga hinahabol and you do not prosecute them. Alam nila who pollutes them, and then pagka napunta na sa korte, all they do was under the table and or sometimes settlements. I do believe pagka talagang in-implement mo siya at meron ka talagang nasampulan, di ba? Just recently, I don't like to mention her name. She was doing a good job. Nakita namin yon. But look what happened. I don't want to say more.
Thank you, sir. Now, this is just a request from LGU La Union. If you have some studies conducted, please share to us the references. And as a closing, I would like to read the note from Engineer Jocelyn Cabuang of Tarlac State University. Sabi niya, the quality of water must be observed because it determines the type of fish that survive on it. 70% of pollution problem is caused by human activities. I can only do something, but I cannot do everything. Each of us should start in our own little ways to avoid algal bloom. Do not throw detergents and fertilizer runoff rich in nitrates and phosphates. Throw it in a septic tank. With that, I would like to thank our speakers. Likewise, I would like to call now on Academician Fabian M. Dairit, NAS Acting Director, and Director Victor Mariano, Regional Director of DOST-CAR, to present our, may we call on Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, sir, and Director Victor Mariano to present our certificates and tokens of appreciation. First, of course, to our respected speaker, Dr. Panganiban. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Sir, picture daw. Thank you very much po. We would like to remind everybody that we will resume right away for the 4th plenary session. The speaker for the following is Ms. Josie Platon Desnacido, who will be talking on fish in the Filipino diet. May I therefore turn over the floor to my good friend Director Armando Ganal of DOST Region 1.
Proud ako. Ikaw, proud. Proud ka ba?
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. While our Secretariat is preparing the table for our discussions and speaker, I am Arman Ganal, your moderator for this plenary session. This is the 4th plenary session of the Regional Scientific Luzon Cluster and is the last session for the day. As mentioned a while ago, our speaker is Ms. Josie Platon Desnacido from the DOST Food and Nutrition Research Institute. She will discuss fish in the Filipino diet, pros and cons. Ms. Desnacido's presentation will be followed by a discussion from Ms. Cecil Leia Tibayaga from the UP College of Home Economics, UP Diliman. The rapporteur for this session will be Ms. Janina Cristel Malonzo, Science Research Specialist 2 of DOST Regional Office number 3. May I request the speaker, the discussant, and the rapporteur to please come up on stage and occupy the seats provided for you. Thank you. Ms. Josie Platon Desnacido is currently a Science Research Specialist 1 at the Food and Nutrition Research Institute of the Department of Science and Technology. She holds a master's degree in Applied Nutrition from the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, Laguna, where she also obtained her Bachelor of Science degree in Nutrition. She is a registered nutritionist dietitian since 2001. As a researcher, she contributed significantly to the analysis of food consumption data in the Philippines at the household and individual levels. likewise in the evaluation of food consumption survey methods. Ms. Cecilia Tibayaga is a registered nutritionist dietitian and an associate professor at the College of Home Economics, University of the Philippines, Diliman. She obtained her Master of Science in Nutrition and Bachelor of Science in Community Nutrition from the same academic institution. At present, she is a PhD nutrition candidate. For the past 17 years, she has been teaching graduate and undergraduate nutrition courses such as Advances in Medical Nutrition Therapy, Principles of Nutrition, Nutrition for the At-Risk Groups, Diet Therapy, and Introduction in Community Nutrition. Aside from teaching, Associate Professor Bayaga has also served her college through various administrative positions, such as Chair of the Department of Food Science and Nutrition, Office of Community and Extension Services, and Office of Research and Publications. Our rapporteur, Ms. Janina Esmalonzo, is a licensed nurse and currently a Science Research Specialist 2 and the manager for the Small Enterprise Technology Upgrading Program of DOST Regional Office 3. Ms. Malonzo earned her Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of the Assumption in 2007 and is currently taking her Master of Science in Nursing at the Holy Angel University. We would like to remind that our speaker is given 20 minutes for her presentation and our discussant for another 20-minute allotment for her presentation. We would like also to remind the audience to write their questions on the piece of paper to be provided by the ushers and usherettes, together with your name and affiliation. Please give your questions to the usher or usherettes at the side of the stage, and to manage our time, priority will be given to the written questions. May I now call on our presenter, Ms. Josie Planton.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Thank you for inviting me. Ito po yung huling plenary session, kaya okay pa po ba kayo? Okay, sige po. I will be presenting fish in the Filipino diet. But before I proceed to my presentation, I just want to share this quotation. Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. I use this quote not only because we are talking about fish, but also it's more worthwhile to teach someone to do something for themselves than to do it for them on an ongoing basis. For the outline of my presentation, I will be, this includes my introduction, the benefits and possible contaminants in fish, and the result of the household food consumption of the National Nutrition Service. Okay, let's talk about fish. When we say fish, this includes the fresh fish, the dried fish, the processed fish, and the crustaceans and mollusks. Globally, the world per capita apparent fish consumption increased from 1960s to 2014 and 2015. China remained the major producer of fish and fish products, followed by Indonesia, the USA, and the Russian Federation. The world per capita apparent fish consumption increased from 1960, and it was doubled in 2014 and 2015. fish and fish products as determined by household survey in Southeast Asia. This data was obtained from the 8 countries, and as the result shows, that Cambodia has the highest fish and fish products consumption. This is in kilogram capita per year, followed by Philippines with 40.2 kilograms per capita per year, and this fish and fish products consumption was reported in Timor-Leste. The Philippines is the major fishing nation and the world's second largest archipelagic state. The Philippines ranked 5th in the top 25 producers and the main groups of farm species in 2014. In 2015, Filipino households consume 101 grams per capita per day of fish and fish products. And in terms of volume of production, this is in metric tons. The fisheries, in 2013, the volume production is 4.7 million in metric tons, but it was decreased in 2014 and 2015 at 4.6 million metric tons. Between the exportation and the importation of fish and fishery products, we can see in the result that mas mataas yung ini-import natin, ang volume of importation as compared to exportation. 403,840 in metric tons in 2015 ang nai-import, while yung na-export natin ay 226,821. Yung mga commonly fish na ine-export natin are tunas, the shrimp, the prawns, squids, while yung mga ini-import natin na fish and fish products are, again, tuna, ito yung mackerel natin at saka yung sardines. The intake of fish and fish products are included in the National Guidelines for Filipinos. In Guideline number 1, it is stated that we should eat a variety of foods every day, and in Guideline number 4, we should consume fish, lean meat, poultry, and dried beans. And in Pinggang Pinoy, it was also, the intake of fish and fish products was also included in Pinggang Pinoy. We should eat fish, shellfish, lean meat, poultry, eggs, and dried beans and nuts needed for the growth, maintenance, and repair of body tissues. Also, we should include fatty fishes in the diet like tuna, sardines, and mackerel 2 to 3 times a week. For the energy and nutrient content of commonly consumed foods, these are the commonly consumed fishes based on the 2015 updating survey conducted by FILIPINO DOST. And the commonly consumed fishes are galunggong, the bangus, tilapia, tulingan, and tamban. And among these commonly consumed fishes, bangus, mas mataas ang bangus sa energy, sa vitamin A, at saka sa fat. The energy and nutrient content was based on the food composition table in 1997. While yung tulingan ay mataas sa protein at saka niacin. In terms of calcium, tamban ang mas rich in calcium. For the sample dishes, sample fish dishes and its energy and nutrient content, naglagay lang ako ng, flash lang ako ng mga example. Ang isang example ko dito ay yung fish escabeche. The type of fish na ginamit ko dito ay galunggong. Yung method of cooking ay boiled. Ang weight per serving ay 17.8 grams. At yung estimated cost per serving is 35 pesos. The price may vary depending sa location. For the energy and nutrient content of galunggong escabeche, it has 22 kilocalories. In terms of energy, in terms of protein, it contains 4.5 grams. For the fats, 0.5 grams. Iron, 0.3 milligrams. And for calcium is 13.33 grams. Another example is the sinigang na bangus. Okay. The type of fish is bangus, and the method of cooking is boiled. The weight per serving is 40.8 grams, and the estimated cost per serving is 50 pesos. For the energy and nutrient content ng sinigang na bangus, yung energy ay meron siyang 70 kilocalories. For the protein, 10.3 grams. For the fats, 3.3 grams. At yung iron ay 0.6 milligram. For the calcium is 22.80 grams. Vitamin A, 70.8 microgram per retinol equivalent. Thiamine, 0.01 milligrams. Riboglobin, 0.05 milligrams. And niacin, 4 milligrams. So, what are the benefits of consuming fish and fish products? Ano ba yung mga health benefits pag kumakain tayo ng fish and fish products? First, fish is low in fat and high quality protein. Kung ikaw ay in diet, mas magandang option ang pagkain ng fish kasi ito ay low calorie food. Also, fish is a good source of high quality protein that is not high in saturated fat. Also, fish and fish products contain omega-3 fatty acids, which may lower risk of heart attacks and strokes, reduces the risk of some types of cancers, reduces the risk of type 1 diabetes in children, and form of autoimmune diabetes in adults, and essential for growth and development. Another is fish is linked to reduce decline in brain function in old age, and it may help prevent or treat the depression. Another benefit is contain a wide variety of vitamins and minerals. Stages. The first stage is the selection of primary sampling unit. The second stage is the selection of enumeration areas, and the third stage, which is the final stage, is the selection of households. The food consumption survey has two units of analysis, the household level and the individual level. For the household level, atong sample po, yun po ay titimbangin ng aming mga researchers. Kahit po mga condiments, ay talagang tinitimbang po ng aming mga researchers. At saka yung mga pagkain po na kinain nila sa labas, yun po ay nire 4 hours. Okay, for the flow chart of the analysis of food intake, yung mga data po na nag-gather namin ay ini-encode po sa computer, at meron po kaming software na tinatawag na data evaluation system, na kung saan po yung computation po ng energy at saka nutrient ay in-estimate po gamit po ang FCT, ang food composition table, and then yung household, ang household po at saka individual intake po ay in-interpret using, for the adequacy, ginagamit po namin ang Philippine Dietary Reference Index of PDRI. Okay, for the results of the food consumption of the National Nutrition Survey, the mean 1 day per capita food intake by food groups, ito po yung average na kinukonsume po ng isang membro ng pamilya. Ang average po ay 844 grams. At ang malaki po porsyento nito ay galing sa cereals and cereal products, na included po dito ang ating rice, ang ating bread at ating mga noodles. Ang next po na malaking porsyento ng ating food intake ay ang ating gulay. At ang pangatlo po ang ating fish and fish products. Okay, next. For the fish and fish products consumption in the Philippines, tingnan po natin yung 1 day per capita intake. Ito po yung trend since 1970 na nag-start po ang survey. Makikita natin na noong 1993 talagang mababa po ang food consumption natin sa fish. And then, after 10 years, tumaas po siya in 2013, pero nag-decrease po siya significantly in 2015. Okay, next. In terms naman po sa food cost, ano po ba ang nilalaan nating pera sa ating pagkain? How much po? Nakalculate po namin na 67.74 po ang isang membro ng pamilya, ito po yung na-spend niya. At ang more share po ay sa cereals and cereal products, followed by fish and fish products na nagkokas po ng 10.70 pesos per day. Okay, next. For the source of fish and fish products among Filipino households, makikita natin na majority ay nakukuha natin sa binibili natin. Ano po? Either sa wet markets or sa karinderya, at maliit na porsyento lang po yung own produce. Okay, next. The commonly consumed fish and fish products po, in terms po sa fish, fresh fish, ito po yung galunggong natin, bangus, tilapia, tulingan, at saka tamban. For the dried fish, ito po yung tamban natin na tuyo or dried. Itong galunggong na daing, dilis, sapsap, at saka po yung tamban. For the processed fish, ito po yung ating sardinas, yung mga bagoong natin, patis, yung alamang, at saka po yung smoked galunggong. For the crustacean and mollusks, ang ating pusit po ang commonly consumed at ang ating iba't ibang uri ng hipon. For the mean 1 day per capita intake of fish and fish products by region, makikita po natin kung anong mga regions ang mataas ang consumption ng fish. Yung yellow line po, ito po ay nagko-correspond sa 2013 survey, while yung violet po ay 2015 updating survey. Makikita po natin sa slide na noong 2013 po, Western Visayas, ARM at saka Mimaropa po ang mataas sa fish and fish products consumption. While noong 2015 po, Eastern Visayas po at saka Mimaropa ang mataas po sa intake. Pero makikita natin na talagang yung CAR, which is far north of the country, ito po talaga ang mababa ang intake natin. Okay, next. Dahil nandito po tayo sa Baguio City, i-present ko po yung trends sa CAR region in terms of fish and fish products. Makikita po natin na tumaas naman po siya from 1993 to 2013. Pero bigla po siyang bumaba ng 2015. Though yung data po ay not statistically significant. For the place of residence, makikita po natin sa slide na yung mga household po na nakatira sa rural area, sila po talaga ang mas nagko-consume ng fish and fish products as compared po sa urban areas. Ito po ay in both 2013 and 2015 surveys. In terms of wealth quintile, makikita po natin na habang tumataas po ang estado ng, in terms of income, mas marami po ang nakukonsume po na fish and fish products, which is talagang ma-associate natin na ang income talagang may epekto sa pagbili natin ng fish and fish products. Okay. In zooming in, meron din pong study na kinonduct si Dr. Agdepa et al. Ito po ay in collaboration with World Fish. Ito po yung entitled Evaluation of the Nutritional Status of Households Living in Selected Coastal Areas in the Philippines. Ang aim po ng study na ito ay para malaman po kung para ma-evaluate po yung nutritional status po ng mga miyembro ng pamilya na na-random sample na nakatira po sa mga selected na coastal areas in the Philippines. At ito po ay sinagawa sa 3 barangays. 2 barangays po in Sogod, Southern Leyte, yung Maak po ay Mahayahay, at saka sa Dipolog City po, isang barangay, yung Barangay Galas. At makikita po natin sa results na talagang mataas po ang prevalence ng stunting at saka underweight. Doon. Next. Pati po yung overweight, mataas po sa adults, at saka yung lactating women po, meron po siyang 25% na prevalence rate. Okay? Makikita po natin sa slide yung usual consumption. Ano po ba yung usual na kinakain doon ng mga household? Ito po yung rice, cereals, and products, the vegetables, at saka fish at saka shellfish. Next. Pero yung school children, ano po, makikita natin, ano po yung usual na meal composition nila? Ito po yung rice and cereals, vegetables, at saka mga pagkain po na mataas sa fats at saka sa oils. Ano po? Pero, ang liit po ng consumption nila ng protein foods. Mataas sa protein. Ito po yung mga fish natin at saka yung mga meats natin. This explain why, ano po, why mataas po yung stunting rate dun sa kinonduct nila na survey. Okay, next. For dietary diversity score, ito po yung tool na kung saan ginagamit ko para po malaman yung access to food at saka audit kaya po yung quality of food. Actually po, dito sa tool na ito, meron pong 12 food groups. Pero makikita po natin sa result, the mean dietary diversity score was only 6.4. Ano po, ang target po natin ay 12 na food groups na kinakain sana, pero 6 lang po ang mean dietary diversity score. At 3 out of 10 po na households may have poor access to food. Ito po yung sinasabi ng data. Okay, the study concludes that underweight and stunting among children are the primary problems due to the interplay of multiple factors, the poverty, the poor food access, and the low dietary variety. Low intake of protein-rich foods may have an implication on stunting among children. Okay, in summary, sabi kasi mag-wrap up na ako, fish is a part of the typical diet of every Filipino. The highest fish and fish products consumption were recorded in Mimaropa and Visayas region in 2015. Fish is loaded with important nutrients and the best source of omega-3 fatty acids. However, fish may contain mercury and other contaminants that may have risk for health. With that ends my presentation. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions,
ito po yung madalas na ginagamit na pag 7 years old, dapat kumpleto na po lahat ng cognitive faculties. So yung 3 R's, writing, reading, and arithmetic, kaya na po ng isang bata. Dahil yung kanyang brain development ay naaayon. So infants obtain DHA through placental transfer. But this is very much dependent on maternal supply. So nasa kalusugan ng nanay, nakasalalay ang kalusugan ng bata. Following birth, infants would then receive the DHA through breast milk. And I would like to share a study we did in terms of determining the DHA level of breast milk of Filipino mothers. We did this in 2001 and it was published in 2003. We determined the DHA level of 100 Filipino lactating women, and we subjected the distribution of the participants based on the Family Income and Expenditure Survey because we would want to know the relationship of income with DHA level in the breast milk. So, tinignan po namin ito, nangolekta po kami, humingi po kami ng permiso sa mga nanay, kumuha po kami ng sample ng hind milk, and then we subjected it to DHA analysis. At ito po yung ating results. Okay. Kasama din po yung nutritional intake nila. So we did a 3-day food report. So yung ginagawa po ng household food consumption survey na ginagawan po nila ng food weighing, gumawa din po kami ng ganun sa study na to, 3 araw. At bukod doon, gumawa rin po kami ng food frequency survey. So tinignan po namin yung dalas ng pagkain nila ng mga food items. So, pinapakita po nitong table na to ang DHA present in breast milk. So, the DHA micrograms present per ml of breast milk is around 188. And if it's percent DHA, it's 0.65. So, what would these numbers mean? Let's compare them with other nationalities, Asian and Western. So, you would see there, no? Pinag-grupo po namin sila kung nasaan po yung Asian. So, you have Hong Kong, Chinese, Japanese, Malay, Chinese in Malaysia, and Indians in Malaysia as compared to Western nationalities. And then you would have how many subjects? So, tayo po yung isa sa pinakamarami. Actually, second tayo to the Canadian study, which involved 198. So, kung mapapansin po ninyo, ang Filipino ay mataas po, 0.65. At pinakamataas po dito ay 0.9. Pero if you would look into the Western part, medyo mas mababa po sila. So, ano po ang ibig natin sabihin dito? Are we within the recommendation? Yes, we are. Kasi po, ang sabi po ng recommendation is that the DHA concentration in breast milk should be around 0.2 to 0.4. So tayo mga Filipino nata 0.6. Medyo mataas po yan. Okay. So tinignan namin, ano ang pwedeng maging dahilan? Bakit ganito? So tinignan namin ang kanilang mga kinakain. So we related it to the types of fish that they consume. And dun sa aming survey ng 100 mothers, lactating mothers, ito po yung mga uri ng isda na lumabas na popular among them. At nilagyan namin ng highlight yung top 3. Ibig sabihin po ng top 3, they really eat it once a week. So these are bangus, galunggong, and tilapia. Still consistent dun sa pinakita po ngayon na 2015. You have galunggong, bangus, and tilapia. And when we did a chi-square test, nakita po namin na yung consumption nila ng bangus is related to their DHA level. So the more bangus that they consume, the higher their DHA level is. And if you would look into the composition, it is a fatty fish because 5% of its weight is about fat. So sumunod po itong ginawa namin. So we did a second study and this time we concentrated on bangus. So tinignan naman po namin ang bangus consumption. Anong uri ba ng pagluluto sa bangus ang ginagawa ng pangkaraniwang Pilipino? Pagkatapos, ano po ba ang level ng DHA nito? Kasi yun nga, ibabalik namin, bakit tayo nakakuha ng medyo magandang level of DHA dun sa mga nanay na kumakain regularly ng bangus. So tinignan namin, nag-survey uli kami kung ano yung mga popular food preparation methods that they do to bangus, and then we analyze the DHA level of these particular dishes. Of course, we have to standardize the dishes and subject them to sensory evaluation. So ito po yung top 10 common cooking methods applied to milkfish. Ang tatlo po ay ang sinigang, paksiw, at fried. Tapos the rest would be daing, inihaw, stuffed o relleno, sarsyado, yung pinakita po kanina, sinigang sa miso, kasi yung sinigang dun sa unahan, yan po yung sampalok, ang base. And then you would have pangat or pesa, and then banguste. So when looking into the DHA levels of this, paksiw would have the highest among the 3 methods. Bakit po? Kasi tambak system ang ginagawa natin sa paksiw. Ilalagay natin lahat ng ingredients, hayaan natin kumulo, hindi natin hahaluin. Pag nakita natin yung mata, pumuputok na, kulay puti na, lumabas na, okay na. Compared to sa sinigang na kung saan may halo ka pa at meron ka pang additional ingredients, gaya ng kangkong, labanos, name it, no? Kung ano yung nilalagay natin. Sa paksiw, nagdadagdag din tayo. Pero seldom po yun. Madalas kasi talagang by itself lang po talaga yan. Paminta at bawang sibuyas, yun lang po. Tapos suka. Okay. Sa fried, talagang makikita nyo bumagsak kasi nagta-transfer po yung DHA from the fish to the oil. So yung DHA po ay nandun na po sa mantika na ating pinagprituhan po. Okay? So, ano po ang gusto natin iparating? Kailangan talaga na may fat intake. Diba? Madalas kasi nakikita or registered nutritionist, kailangan meron po tayong pamamaraan.
The House will charge us additional by higher animals. What can be the factors that influence fish intake? Why is the trend increasing?
Statistically significant po yung pag-decrease. Thank you.
Okay, probably we can still accommodate 2 questions. From Mr. Ruben Rubio of the University of the Cordilleras. Upon hearing all the lectures about fish consumption and the health benefits as well as the negative effects to the human health, is it safer to eat fish from the sea or ocean rather than the fish from the farm.
Sundan po yung sinabi kanina ng previous speaker po natin, yung sa just concluded view.
Kailangan talaga na nandun siya sa plato natin. Ano po, sabi nga sa nutritional guidelines for Filipinos, eat variety of foods every day. At ang fish po ay dapat i-include po sa diet po ng mga Pilipino.
Okay.
Siguro pwede din natin paghugutan po ng sagot doon ay yung kultura natin. Kasi pag inalis mo yung isda, mahirap eh. Mahirap mong ipayo yun sa tao na huwag kang kakain ng isda. Eh, linggo-linggo, kahit isang araw o 2 araw sa linggo kumakain tayo ng isda. So, iisipin din natin na yun nga, yun, from our end, no, na bilang dietitian, magbibigay kami ng payo. Kailangan din yung payo namin rooted sa kultura eh. Kasi pagka hindi siya rooted sa kultura natin, hindi yan susundin. So, kapag inalis mo ang isda, mahirap kasi it has been a habit. Kaya nga siya diet. Yun yung madalas kong sabihin sa mga estudyante ko din. Kasi until you die, you're supposed to be on that diet. So, if you take away fish from the Filipino diet, para bang pinapatay mo ang Pilipino. Mahirap, hindi yun masusunod. Kakain yan. So kung ikaw na may kakayahan, ang gagawin na lang po natin ay siguro we try to regulate. Ano ba yung pwedeng ibigay sa kanila at gaano karami? So kailangan yung polisiya natin doon at yung effective na pagbaba mula sa policy making bodies, pagdating hanggang doon sa mga barangay, naiintindihan ng mga tao.
Yes, tama.
Addition lang, ang fish, talagang masarap po ang fish at saka in compared po sa meat at saka po sa pork at saka beef, mas madali po talaga lutuin. Easy to prepare po ang fish. Di po ba? Mas madali nating ma-prepare ang fish, maluto. Kasi yung